Alright, welcome back to another video over here on SCS Combat, and today I'm going to be giving you my first prediction video out of 3 hopefully for the most stacked weekend boxing scene in a while. This week in Belfast we have Lewis Crocker vs Paddy Donovan 2, the rematch, one of the most highly anticipated fights in the history of this sport and definitely in this country. The biggest fight probably this country's ever seen, the first all Irish world title fight, and that's going to be what I'm getting into today. But also we have the super fight, arguably the biggest fight of the decade, Canelo versus Crawford. We have Callum Walsh versus Fernando Vargas Jr. on the undercard as well, so I'll be getting into that in another video. Come back for that. And we have Anuya versus MJ, so hopefully prediction videos for all of them will be out this week. The first ever all Irish world title fight, which kind of shocking to be fair, considering how many great boxers our country has had. A lot of them just haven't ended up in the world title scene. Unfortunately, you come off from amateurs, but here we are. Lewis Crocker takes on Paddy Donovan for the IBF welterweight world title. Obviously, previously held by Jerome Boots Annis, who dropped the belt and has moved up a weight class. Obviously, we know the history here. Lewis Crocker versus Paddy Donovan 1 was the eliminator for the IBF welterweight world title for the winner to take on the previously mentioned Jerome Boots Annis. And I mean, controversy written all over the walls on this one. Paddy Donovan winning the fight by clear as day, winning by a mile, but he's getting points took off for headbutts, and then he drops Lewis Crocker. Round 8 drops him and goes in for the kill with 10 seconds to go, and throws a left hook after the bell that stops Lewis Crocker but also gets him disqualified. That's the way the first fight went. Outrage everywhere. Was it legal? Was it late? Was it not? Was it warranted to take points before? Silence on one hand, disbelief on the other hand. We're back. I mean, this fight worked out. Everything played perfectly. You might have looked at that first one and thought it was a bad ending, but trust me, for both fighters, this one worked out perfectly. One of the most anticipated main events in the history of this country. Most anticipated rematch in Irish boxing history. The biggest rematch in Irish boxing history. And the first ever all-Irish world boxing title fight. Now, IBF welterweight world title, Lewis Crocker, the Croc, known as a hard-hitting, ferocious war fighter, someone that goes in there, goes to war, always comes out on top and gets the win. You look at his fights against like Tara McKenna and Conor Walker, he had some great fights in there and it was always a scrap, but he always come out on top. Paddy Donovan, if you look at them, Lewis Crocker's more of a machine gun. He shoots anywhere. It can go anywhere. It can be reckless. It can be huge overhands, but it can also be, although it can be a huge overhand, it could be a smart and tactical setup shot that helps land on the target. Paddy Donovan's a sharpshooter, as they call him. More of a sniper. He stands in that Philly shell stance, and he just kind of picks and picks and picks until he kind of hurts you enough. Paddy Donovan hits really hard. Ask Lewis Crocker, because he'll tell you. Paddy Donovan maybe has deceptive power to some, because I know Lewis Crocker didn't think that Paddy Donovan would hit that hard going into the first fight, but he did. And it wasn't necessarily the one punch knockout power, it was the totality of everything. It was the adding up of every little shot that Paddy Donovan hit Lewis Crocker with. The hooks, the jab was very nice. You're looking at uppercuts, right hands, everything was just adding up perfectly for Paddy Donovan in there that night. These are the things. And this is where, if you've seen my interview with Jared Hughes, shout out Jared Hughes, but I asked him at the press conference, the opening press conference for this fight, and he said he thinks Paddy Donovan's going to take it. Now, I know he's close with Paddy Donovan, but, one of the points they come up with in that interview is, you seen Lewis Crocker in that last fight, and when he was desperate, he landed. After that first knockdown, when he got up and started swinging for the fences, Lewis Crocker swinging like that opens for counters from a counter puncher like Paddy Donovan. I mean, he can really load up on his shots then because he's a tactician, and he'll get in between your shots. He'll make you miss and he'll make you pay. I think the hardest thing with this fight is being able to kind of pick Lewis Crocker, because I don't know if you can. Obviously, I'm not saying that Lewis Crocker is definitely going to lose this fight, because it's boxing and that's not what's going to happen. And we don't know the future yet, do you know what I mean? But it's hard to envision Lewis Crocker winning, and I'll tell you why. It's because they often say in the sport, you're only as good as your last fight. And look at Lewis Crocker's last fight. It went terribly wrong in every aspect. Now, the question is, how much can Lewis Crocker change as opposed to how much Paddy Donovan can change? How much better can Lewis Crocker be? Because it's the same coach. It's Billy Nelson. It's difficult to see much changing with Crocker still with Billy Nelson, in my opinion. You know, how can you expect change when the root of the whole thing hasn't been changed, and the root is the coach at the end of the day? Now, obviously, on the side of Crocker, they do claim that something happened on the day of the fight that caused Lewis Crocker to be off and to not perform at his best. I don't know what that is. Obviously, they're not going to say. They say it was personal. But the thing is, what are the odds that Lewis Crocker gets set off again? What are the odds that something puts him off in his performance? It can't happen. Lewis Crocker's going out in front of a 20,000 crowd in his hometown football stadium, and you think, I mean, it's going to be a pressure cooker. The atmosphere in that place the first time was absolutely, I mean, no way other to describe it than just tension waiting to boil over at any moment. Double the attendance, and that place is going to be absolutely ballistic. I mean, neither of them have fought in this big of a crowd, but I think you noticed last time out that Paddy Donovan thrives under pressure. But the biggest question here is, does Lewis Crocker? Does Lewis Crocker thrive when he's the main event of a world title fight? You know, to be the winner of the first ever All-Irish world title fight in his hometown crowd with 20,000 people in his hometown football stadium. Does Lewis Crocker thrive? Does Lewis Crocker survive? Does he make it through? And that's the question. Does it get them? Does he get offset again? And does that leave Paddy Donovan as the winner? But there's no doubt that out of all the times in Lewis Crocker's life, he cannot let, I'm not saying pressure was what done it last time, by the way. Obviously, it could have been something personal, but we don't know. So apologies if I'm being a bit disrespectful, but we don't know. And I've got to assume if something can set you off once, something could set you off twice. And it could have been pressure this time is going to be immense. So who's to say that doesn't set anyone off? The technicalities of this fight lies in the coaches, in my opinion. It lies in the IQ of the fighters. I believe Paddy Donovan is a smarter boxer. I believe he hits hard enough. I believe Andy Lee is a smarter and better trainer, better coach. I believe Andy Lee and Paddy Donovan together is a better team than Lewis Crocker and Billy Nelson together. Now, this isn't to say this isn't anything bad about Lewis Crocker or Billy Nelson, but Andy Lee was a world champion himself. High IQ obviously already there. Paddy Donovan should maybe already be a world champion himself. So, you know, put them two together and what do you get? You get a special team. They have said that Lewis Crocker is a completely different side to him where he boxes, and it's necessary that we see that in this fight because honestly, if Lewis Crocker comes out and does the same thing, respect him for taking the rematch, but he's going to get beat again and probably earlier and in more devastating fashion than he did the first time. Who can improve more? Because Paddy Donovan had the performance of a lifetime last time, obviously just upset by his own, you know, recklessness. Lewis Crocker had the worst performance of his career. So Lewis Crocker has more room for improvement. But the question is even at that maximum, is that improvement enough to beat the best Paddy Donovan? And in my opinion, my official prediction, it's not. I'm picking Paddy Donovan to win this fight, and I'm picking him to get it done by stoppage. I'm picking him to get it done just purely because I think he is a better boxer. I just think Paddy Donovan can be more sharp. I really do think that although Lewis Crocker does show a lot of confidence, I think you seen last time from the alley shuffle at the start when he was getting introduced to the performance, Paddy Donovan thrives under pressure. And I do believe that Paddy Donovan is going to be the one to win this fight. For Lewis Crocker, the stars have aligned in a way that he's fighting for a world title in his hometown stadium, football stadium, 20,000 people, and he gets a chance to revenge. He gets a chance to rewrite history and redeem himself. Now you look at how the stars were aligned for Paddy Donovan, he gets the chance to prove that he is the rightful winner, that he does not deserve to have that one loss on his record, and he gets the chance to prove that he is the best boxer in Ireland possibly. Obviously we have fighters like Andrew Kakachi there, and still shout out Mick Conlon, still going. Obviously he got the knockout over Jack Bates in there on Friday night, was a spectacular night, and check out my interview with him if you haven't already. Shout out Mick Conlon. So although there's a lot of great boxers in this country, Paddy Donovan puts his name in that conversation, and he gets the chance to prove to Lewis Crocker that all along he was never the rightful winner. I've got Paddy Donovan winning this one. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments and who you think is going to get it, because obviously opinions will be split on this still, even after the first fight. But I just think it's too hard to envision how Crocker can change so much. And I do think that even if Crocker does change a lot, this is a 12-round fight, and I think Paddy Donovan and Andy Lee have the IQ to work their way around it and move on the go and to get the victory. If you got the Croc, let me know how you think he gets it done in the comments, because I think that's important. If you're going to pick him, let me know how you think he does it, because I'm interested to hear. I'm obviously open. If you think I've got something wrong, let me know. I've got Kevin Ajako, Karen McKenna, and I've got Manny Borland as well. So shout out to all the fighters. Going to be a great card. Like, subscribe, follow. Check out my Instagram, Twitter, TikTok.